Woo! All right, we are looking at some lovely, lovely Moogles today. Why? Because we've got this Serah legend that we are gonna try our best to make this card work. So let's pull her up, get a nice look at this brand new Serah legend. So Serah, potential of the card is what I called it in my set review. Is that still true? We'll find out. So when she enters the field, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. You add a backup among them to your hand, or you can play a Job Moogle backup among them onto the field and return the other cards to the bottom of the deck in any order. Then, when Serah attacks, you get to choose a character, dull and freeze it. If you control 4 or more backups, they also discard a card as well. Excellent on attack ability. One of the best you could have on an ice card, and the entry effect is certainly interesting. So this card is definitely kind of weird, and I haven't found a fantastic deck to put it in. I found a deck I liked, but haven't found a fantastic one, but that may just be the nature of Moogles right now. There's just only so much Moogle support, and this card is somewhat strangely designed in that I think this card is best when it's played early. I think if you're able to, you want to get down a single 2-cost backup, one of our helpful Moogles here, and then play Serah on turn 2. So turn 1, put down a Moogle, Ice Fire, whatever you need, and then have Serah just ramp you out, get another Moogle. If you're lucky, you'll hit Mont Blanc into Hurdy, and then you go off from there. Now, the thing is, at first I thought, but you got to get to 4 backups to get her effect. It's very important to remember, Dull freezes a character on attack at all times. You could be on 0 backups, and she'll still do that. And that is a great ability. You can push whatever dangerous blockers out of the way. You can lock down some of their backup lines. That is absolutely worth it. Now, of course, if you can get to 4 and start junking their hand as well, Bob's your uncle, as that phrase goes. But it's okay to not be there, because just a dull freeze on anything on the board when she attacks is fantastic. So it's okay if you don't get to 4. I think you absolutely play Serah about as early as you can, preferably on curve. To support Serah, if you'll notice, every single backup in this deck is a Moogle. Now, if you look at the list, that means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unique named backups. None of these are standard units, so is it a little dicey? At times, yeah, it can be. As you notice, I'm only playing 15. The original version of this list, I put in the Good King, Mooglemog, with this as well. But where is he? The issue is that he really wants to see a lot more Moogles than that to be consistent with only revealing 3. I put him in, and there just wasn't enough. I couldn't play this number of backups for Serah, but also have enough to make the Good King consistent. So I got rid of him. I just went in on the Serah idea. If you wanted to do the King, you definitely need to put in more Moogles than this. And as you can see, I remember someone asked me when they saw one of these Moogles come out off the Serah, they're like, why are you playing those? Like, nobody plays those cards. Well, just for numbers, because there's only so many Moogles in Fire and Ice, and a lot of them, unfortunately, have the same name. So if we look Job Moogle, and we'll limit that to Fire and Ice, we have Mog 13-2, Mog 13-2, Hurdy, Mont Blanc, the Class Moogles, Hurdy, Mont Blanc, Hurdy, Mont Blanc, Hurdy, Mont Blanc. We just don't have the names there. Maybe in the future we can get more diverse names. We can do something. But nonetheless, we still have some good targets. This Mog will search out the Serah. It also searches out Orphan. So it's got some really good targets. The color fixer is in here because I just like that kind of consistency, and again, I need as much as I can. And these ones also aren't entirely irrelevant. I have used this one to bump an ice forward by 1,000. I've actually used it to save Serah from an Amaterasu. Yeah, they canceled the effect, but she lives, which means, again, she can start attacking and threatening that next turn. So not entirely irrelevant. Same with the fire one. I've used it to save a fire forward before. We are playing Mont Blanc and Hurdy in this list. It does feel really bad if you see Hurdy first, because then Mont Blanc doesn't do anything. However, I have had some games. I see Hurdy first. He's my backup. All right, well, put Hurdy down, and I have the Serah in hand. Turn 2, I put down the Serah. I reveal the Mont Blanc. I still play it onto the field because it's still a 3-cost backup. Yes, it doesn't get the Hurdy effect, which is very unfortunate, but it still plays a backup down for free. So for the numbers' sake, I think that's what you want to do. The Wind CP is going to go to waste in this deck. I thought of teching in Lock, the 8 CP Ice Wind Lock, so that you could potentially do it. However, I just don't think it's consistent enough that you're always going to see this Moogle. And so I didn't want to put in a card that legit, there is no other way to get it onto the field unless this guy happens to be there. If you're feeling risky, you want to take that, by all means, go for it. So, to supplement Serah and all these lovely Moogles, what we can do, Orphan is another 13 character that we can search out with the Mog that will also start attacking their hand, and the weaker their hand is, the more options we have. These are both 5 costs, so they're a little expensive, but they also make great targets for Hurdy. There are some decent targets to flash in here. Potentially a Squall if they empty their hand. Orphan, Serah are absolutely great to play on your opponent's turn. Serah in particular feels fantastic, especially if she also hits a backup. If you're lucky enough, you'll hit a Hurdy to replace the one you just got rid of, and then she'll be ready to attack when your turn comes up. Feels awesome, but don't go nuts with the Hurdy flash. The Dull Freeze on its own is quite good. And since we're doing a lot of discard, we also want Biblos. Good way to just keep down multiple forwards. What I love about Biblos, God, there was a turn I had. What did I do? I had Orphan came down. I put down the Biblos. Orphan came down. Made him discard a card. And they had 3 blockers. Or they had 3 blockers. So Orphan dulled one out of the way. Biblos dulled the next one out of the way. I then attacked with the Biblos that was live. Pulled another card, knocked the last blocker out of the way. Then Serah is free to attack the backup line. She doesn't have to worry about the forwards anymore. Really brutal combination when it gets going. To help out Biblos, Jin is just a generically good monster. He's a great blocker since he will always bump up by an extra 1,000 with the first strike. And he also works really well with Braska's Final Aeon, Susano, can do the 10k board clear. It's not irrelevant to have Terra ping for 3-2 when you cast a summon. Really the biggest one is Squall. Squall doing 5k on swing instead of 4 can be incredibly relevant. There's a lot more 2-cost 5k bodies right now than there are 4k bodies. So I love Jin working with Squall. For our summons, we're running 2 Bahamut. I really love this card the more I play with it. It's so nice to just blast something for 10 or even mix up the damage. You can combine it with a Squall ping, a Terra ping if you really need to. 3 Amaterasu. You have to be running 3 of these cards if you're running fire in any form whatsoever. And then I went in on 3 Belias. I really like the idea of giving... Squall has a way to get haste, but giving the Serah haste, even giving Lastwell haste early to get a surprise discard out of them, but giving Serah haste the turn she comes down is really potent. Also, of course, helps on the defensive measure. You can get first strike 1,000. It's a nice burst, too. If you'd rather have something a little more removal heavy, you can swap out some of the Belias for the Bahamut. But I do like the haste threat, especially since, unfortunately, there's just no Moogle backup that can give us a haste threat. Terra is just generically good. Summon Recursion. Celtius has some good targets to hit in this. Squall can be good, depending on the board state. Orphan is often great. Serah is, of course, fantastic as well. Terra is really not a terrible one to hit to get you back a summon. I really like Vayne in this list as well. He adds to our discard control. We've got enough ice characters that if you're attacking with Vayne, they discard. Oh, yeah, that's what that turn was. Yeah, I didn't attack with Biblos. I attacked with Vayne. Vayne triggered another discard, which Dole throws the Biblos. And then just being a big 10k body with all the fire forwards is very nice. Plus, I love these multi-element cards because you can just pitch them for either element. Lastwell is just your generically good ice staple. Same with Charlotte. She's going to pull fire away from the Serah. Man, oh man, does she pull fire away from the Serah. I had a game where every time I put out Charlotte, they just killed her, because they're trying to get to Serah, but she did her job, even though she died immediately every time. She kept the Serah alive for what I needed to do. Remember, too, it's important. Charlotte doesn't create a stack. So if you put Charlotte down first, now Serah is completely protected, other than for something like Amaterasu or something that doesn't choose. These two are always just going to be a great combo. Susano for when things go wrong. And 1 copy of Braska's Final Aeon. You need to be careful when you put this card out because there are some decks that just don't care about it, that have ways that they don't have to choose. They'll get around it, and 7 is a lot to invest in something. However, if they are very choose heavy and once he hits the board, it's kind of game over, depending on, because he can just start wrecking. He's going to pick anything off at any time, but just be mindful of when you put him out. He's not one you want to just GM out whatsoever. But mainly, the main point of the deck is Serah with the Moogles. It's fun. I do like it. I won't lie. It's not incredible. I don't feel like it just takes over the game. Serah can be kind of weird, especially when you play her later in the game, and maybe your backups are already full, and and it feels bad to not hit a backup on a reveal. If you whiff, again, there's only 15 in here. So you can try to bump up more, but as you can see, if you're sticking with ice and fire, we just don't... I put every named Moogle I could find in here. She just doesn't have the name, so maybe it's something you could look at in the future if she ever gets more names. Nonetheless, it has been fun to play with, tinker with. I've really enjoyed it, you know, even if it's not necessarily the most consistent thing in the world. I wanted to mention on Squall, too. I'm not honestly even that big of a fan of this card. I think he's a bit underwhelming overall. I think there's some situations he excels in, others where he does not. However, what I do like about him in this deck is that he always was going to hit his true potential. He's not a Moogle. He was always going to hit his true potential if you had a deck where you could get their hand to 0, because that's when he gets the first strike Brave. Basically, he says, cleave the board, you win at that point. Well, again, look at all the discard we have in this deck. Vayne and Orphan and Serah, Biblos, Lastwell. We've got enough discard that it's very real to be able to get their hand to 0, and then now Squall's like, all right, my time to shine. Anyway, that is the deck list. I will put the link in the description below. Let me know what you think. If you enjoy it, feel free to give a like and subscribe. I've got a Patreon down below if you'd like to contribute. And if you don't like what you see, hey, I appreciate you watching none the same. So, thank you very kindly, and until next time, I will see you later. Take care.